Welcome in, welcome in. Saturday night means it's time for DFS Chalk Talk, brought to you by Triple Play Fantasy. We get it going right after this. Yes, indeed. Time to get out of that kitchen and rattle those pots and pans. I'm your host, Jeff Mesha. As always, I'm here with the fellas. Mike, what are the Haps in Nebraska, my friend?
Man, it's we are putting the hurting on good old Colorado right now, I tell you what. So I'm enjoying watching that in the background a little bit. Loving that part of things. And then otherwise good, man. It's good. It's week 1, man. We're here. Football is finally freaking here. Like, oh man, I've been excited for this week.
We are here. We are here. And Joseph, what are the Haps in Connecticut, my man?
I used to think only old people said time goes by fast, but it feels like we were just wrapping up the Super Bowl a few months back, and now we are 2 games into the 2024-2025 season, and 2 good games to start, too.
True, and I'll tell you, Joe, if you bring up the weather, we're 1 step away from a Progressive commercial about how not to become your parents. So let's stay away from that. But yeah, so we've already had 2 games to start. You had the kickoff there with Kansas City and Baltimore. You had the game last night with Philly and Green Bay. Couple great games, close games, certainly interesting fantasy wise. And before we get into our lineups, and by the way, if this is the first time you're joining us, we talk about all things DFS between FanDuel, DraftKings, whatever it may be. And we also do the blitz on Sunday mornings where we field all questions. We start at 11 a.m. Eastern. So keep that in mind. I'll reference it again at the end of the show. But in any case, last couple of games, the last 2 nights, interesting. You had Xavier Worthy. You had Jaden Reed, kind of the all-stars fantasy-wise of those 2 games. Surprising a little bit to some, to others maybe not so much. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I thought I have Xavier Worthy in almost every single draft this year. Anytime when I saw that guy's combine speed and then I saw him matched with Patrick Mahomes, it was game over for me. I'm like, I remembered how they utilized Tyreek Hill. As long as that guy has any semblance of hands, and he obviously does. But he did have the one thing that is kind of shocking there is he was limited to 4 targets. So I'm not like super excited about it. It's just I think that he's going to be a very viable flex, and that'll probably be about as good as it gets. And last night.
Well, and not for nothing, but he is a rookie. That was his first game. Okay, it is 4 targets, and there you do have Rashee Rice, you do have Travis Kelce, which Rice had a decent game. Kelce didn't do anything. If you're a Kelce or Mark Andrews, for that matter, owner, then you're very disappointed and you're really pissed off at Isaiah Likely. But in any case, Joe, your thoughts on either of the games?
Yeah, I mean, I think fantasy-wise, you got what you figured you'd get from Kansas City. Mahomes had a good game in general. It was an okay fantasy game for him, 291 and a touchdown. Pacheco got in the end zone, only 45 yards. He'll do better against softer defenses. These are 2 very good defenses. You have to remember, too, these teams know each other really, really well. They just played each other a few months back in January. You got the 7 catches and 100 from Rice. Not that you're expecting that necessarily, but he's clearly, coming right where he left off from last year with his momentum. Worthy obviously is going to play a big role, and you got 3 for 34 from Kelce. You assume that will get better. I think the story fantasy-wise is more on the Baltimore side. Somebody mentioned Likely already. Andrews is back and healthy. Likely had the huge game. I mean, he looked phenomenal for a tight end. He was making Madden video game like cuts and making them miss. 9 for 111 and a touchdown. Andrews 2 for 14 and only the 2 targets. So that, and then the other one too, Lamar Jackson, 16 rushes for 122 yards. Derrick Henry, 13 rushes for 46 yards. So is that because they're playing the Chiefs, a really good defense, a really good team, first game of the year, that's going to auto-correct when they have a better matchup? or, are we got some unpredictable things going on already? I guess time will tell.
You're right. Time will tell. And the Chiefs did have a solid defense, and they continue to have a solid defense. I haven't been high on Kelsey all offseason. I think he's going to have a slide back year, especially with the Taylor Swift effect. We'll call it that. I hear they have a scheduled breakup for the end of the month, but that'll remain to be seen. So in any case, like I said, we get into all things DFS. We'll get into our lineups for this coming main slate for Sunday. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and kick it off to Mikey. I'll let you get into your main slate. We'll give a little analysis and kind of who you got, and we'll give a little back and forth. Joe, you had something?
Yeah, real quick, just because I know before we wanted to talk about Jordan Love real quick. The other main thing that came out of those two games, obviously that fourth quarter, Jordan Love lower leg injury. I think I saw I know it's a sprain they announced today. I believe an MCL sprain. He will not miss the whole season, but he certainly is going to miss some time. So, it's going to be interesting to see if they can survive however many weeks he's out.
4 to 6 is what they're saying. 4 to 6.
4 to 6. Yeah.
Yep.
So fantasy wise now. So who's their backup? I'll be honest. I didn't know the answer.
Honestly, I honestly didn't look that one up either. I think it is, if I remember right,
Malik Willis.
I was going to say, I thought it was Malik Willis. Yeah.
I think I heard they signed him like 2 weeks ago too.
Yeah.
So, when you talk fantasy real quick there, that, Jaden Reed, those guys who would have had some momentum going into week 2, you can forget about that for now. I think, and even Jacobs, 16 for 84, which was nice to see, but what can they do with Malik Willis as their starting quarterback these next few weeks? That's a tough one right out of the gate.
Hand the ball to Josh Jacobs a whole bunch.
I hope so, because I have him in both my main leagues, so I hope that happens. But in any case, Malik Willis, this is the first time I'm hearing of the guy, so he's up there with Jared Stidham until last year and so on. But in any case, appreciate the update. Pardon me?
Tommy DeVito?
Oh God, let's forget about that guy. Jesus Christ, he's still living in his parents' basement in New Jersey, so we won't even bring him up anymore. So is he even on the Giants? Is he on the Giants? I don't even know.
He made the practice squad, or he's their third QB if they're carrying one. I don't remember which one it was.
Should be fun, but in any case, Mikey, we're week 1 main slate. What do you got lineup wise?
So I've got going on right now. I've got this lineup right here. I like the value I'm getting on a lot of these guys right here. Like Jaden Daniels, I think he's going to be one of those guys that I don't think we're going to see him at 7,000 for very much longer out there. I think that 7,000 is probably going to be the cheapest we're ever going to see it. Washington to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is pretty solid defense, but I think that Jaden Daniels will be able to get it done with the legs. Got Bijan Robinson at 8,800 at home against Pittsburgh. Man, I've been banging this drum the whole entire offseason, so I'm not going to stop now. I'm going to get this guy in my lineup. Zamir White against the Chargers. I think that the Chargers are going to be pretty abysmal this year. I think that the Raiders will too, but I really liked what I saw out of Zamir White last year, and so I think I'm willing to give him a shot there against that Chargers defense. Cooper Kupp, baby. Cooper Kupp is back. He's 100%. We're going to be saying puka hookah here in about 2 or 3 weeks because Cooper Kupp is back in full form. Stafford loves that guy. He's going to paint him with targets. I know he's going to get it done for 7,000. Definitely worth a shot. And then my man, Terry Barry McLaurin, we're stacking it up with Jaden Daniels. I think if everybody likes Jaden Daniels, let's like Terry McLaurin too. Jameson Williams last year, at the end of the year last season, that guy was looking really good. And even in the playoffs, up into the playoffs, he was doing very well, very efficient with his targets and everything like that. And he's obviously the wide receiver 2 there now in Detroit. And Goff's got enough arm for 2 receivers, and especially, and even with Sam Laporta. So, he's even got that tight end and everything like that. And they even got pass catching backs. But I think Jameson Williams has himself a pretty decent game, probably in the 16 to 20 range. Bring out the Muth. He's about the only guy I like out there. This kind of changes a little bit for me because I like Russell Wilson's tight end. So I might be changing this guy at 6,300 with Justin Fields coming out there. I'm not so big on tight ends with Justin Fields. So I might be changing that, but right now it's Pat Freiermuth and then Jonathan Taylor in that backfield. I've got 3 powerhouse backs and then the Bengals against the Patriots. I think that we might as well establish with me this season that there is going to be a theme. You're going to be seeing the Patriots on the opposite side of most of my defenses this season because I'm going to be picking on them because I do not think that they're going to be very good.
Put that lineup back up there real quick, Mikey. It's really funny because, like, 2/3 through the season, we have those weeks where we see our lineups and there's a lot of overlap and it makes us feel good. Week 1, that's tough because you can go so many different directions week 1. There's not a lot of injuries, so there's not a lot of bargain plays right off the bat. And the reason why I say that is I look at this lineup and almost every one of these guys is either in one of my DFS lineups or already starting for me in a fantasy league. I love McLaurin with Daniels. To your point, if you're going to like Daniels, you got to like McLaurin. I love Jameson Williams as kind of like a sneaky play, not just this week, but in general this year. I do think he's going to click better. I think everything you said about Goff is absolutely correct in that the trade offense in general. Freiermuth just signed a big time extension, so they're obviously dedicated to him. I know the quarterback there is a question. Jonathan Taylor, I think, is poised for another huge year this week specifically. I think that's a good matchup. I agree 100% about the Patriots, which is why I'm also starting the Bengals defense. And how can you argue with Bijan Robinson? And it's funny because Cooper Kupp, you're right, he is healthy and he's flying. These veteran wide receivers, and I said it last week too, these veteran wide receivers who have almost Hall of Fame numbers, people are forgetting about them rather quickly. And I think Cooper Kupp, for the money you save going him versus Nakua is also a good play in a game where they'll be chasing points.
Puka Nahua. That's what you're going to be saying next week. You're going to be like, who is that guy?
I love it.
So I'll certainly agree with you on those points. I mean, you got Nakua on FanDuel, 8,400, Kupp 7,000. He's not going to be that cheap again. I agree with you, Mikey, on Jaden Daniels, 7,000. I think that's the cheapest we're going to see him all year, as well as Bijan. You brought up a good point. This is maybe a week or two ago. We were talking offline, and you said that Bijan kind of reminded you of Dalvin Cook. So Kirk Cousins on Atlanta now. He was obviously on Minnesota, and we saw how he utilized Dalvin Cook, and I think that's going to translate to Bijan. Bijan had a good year last year. I think he's going to grow exponentially. One more I'll agree with before I get to my disagreement here. Jonathan Taylor, Houston has an awful rushing defense. They're 26th in the league against the rush, and the last time Taylor played them wasn't that long ago. It was back in January. He had 30 rushing attempts for 188 yards and a touchdown. So this it was far and away his best game of the year last year, and he's poised to have another one. I like Jonathan Taylor to have a big year. What I'll disagree with you on is Jameson Williams. Now, I can't necessarily say that he's not going to get some targets, but this guy averaged 35 yards a game last year. He only had 2 touchdowns, and
Yeah, that's right. You disagree with me? I mute you, Jeff.
We're going to be advanced next week, and we'll be able to just green slime them.
Right? There you go, the Nickelodeon effect. I get what you're saying. He is really just for the value is why I grabbed him. But I do totally understand what you're saying with him.
Well, and so he's 5,800 on FanDuel. And I get the value thing, but I'll tell you something. Jordan Addison, 5,700. Godwin, I think he's 56 or 5,500.
Wait, real quick though. I mean, Jordan Addison. Who's my? I think my gout is throwing to Jordan Addison tomorrow.
Sam Darnold still has an arm. He's got to throw to somebody besides Justin Jefferson. I mean, Jefferson's going to have his points, but. In any case, you got Deontay Johnson, who's lower than that. You got Ladd McConkey, who's the number one out there in L.A., 400 less than Jameson Williams. I'd take a shot on Ladd McConkey before Jameson Williams. I don't know about you guys.
I would have to look on DraftKings. I would play Johnson or McConkey ahead, but I don't think pricing-wise, I think I'll defend Mikey there. I don't think you could get him for the same price.
Who's that? Ladd McConkey and Deontay Johnson?
I really like the number 2 receiver there, especially in a revenge game. Like, I mean, those games are always pretty well lights out. Goff against Stafford, both facing their old teams. And again, I mean, I'm sure that the revenge narrative is probably kind of over by now because it's been a couple of years. They've already kind of had these battles and things like that. But I think being in week 1, I think we're going to see some reignited fireworks. I just really like the matchup, and I wanted to get a piece of that if I could. So I get what you're saying, though.
And I guess to defend you a little bit, because that does have the highest over-under of the week this week. So I think you can't go wrong from those guys, especially from the Cooper Cup. I'm staying away actually from Kyron Williams just because of the price point. But Detroit Rams, they're going to have their yardage. So it will be a high-scoring game. So I'll defend you there. But I think there's a couple other guys that you could get that at a better value, and then maybe put that money towards something else. In any case, Joe, I'll let you get into your lineup.
All right. So we're going on DraftKings also. And we are starting with, going back to Jaden Daniels and Williams. I have such an urge to play these rookies based on the value in leagues that you drafted them. And then obviously based on the prices that you have them in now from a DFS perspective for week 1. But I'm going to stick with Baker Mayfield. He's only 5,600, which is actually cheaper than the rookies. Home against Washington. Baker Mayfield, that Tampa Bay, there's a lot of continuity there. Their starters are all returning, the wideouts, the running back. Mayfield had a great end of the season, so I like him to go 20 plus. We got James Cook for Buffalo. Buffalo's a new team this year, and I think it's going to be a lot about James Cook, whether that's in both the passing game and the rushing game, because you're losing all of your wideouts. Kincaid's going to pick up a lot of those. I'm a little rusty here on this thing. Kincaid's going to pick up a lot of those targets, but I think James Cook is also, I also think he's going to be good for a lot of touchdowns this year. We're going Jerome Ford for Cleveland. Basically 5,500, which for week 1 is a lot of value. Again, you don't have a lot of low salaries with injured, guys playing for injured guys or whatnot. You're going to get 4 weeks of Ford starting for Chubb. He gets you 10, 12 points. It's worth it for the 5,500. Mikey said it before. Terry McLaurin, 5,600 on DraftKings. I think that Washington-Tampa Bay game is going to be a shootout. I think Jaden Daniels is going to score some points for that Washington team. Jeff, you just mentioned him. I am going McConkey for the Chargers. 4,700 home against Vegas. They got to throw to someone there. They've got a great quarterback. They've got good coaching now. So I got to assume that McConkey hits the ground running. My real kind of take a shot for the week is Shaheed in New Orleans. Great matchup home against Carolina. He's kind of fallen into the number 2 wideout position there, opposite Olave. Kincaid for Buffalo. I don't know. Dalton Kincaid, I think, is lined up. He's not going to have a lot of 60-yard receptions like a Tyreek Hill, but Kincaid feels like he's lined up for like double-digit targets every week and a lot of red zone targets. So loving getting him in for 5,800. I'm not one to pay up for a tight end too often, but I love Kincaid. Also going Bijan, 7,700, home against Pittsburgh. I'm a little nervous only because there is so much buzz about this Atlanta team and this Atlanta offense and Bijan Robinson. He went top 3, pretty much in any redraft from a league perspective, fantasy wise. I'm a little nervous of how they come out of the gate. I think they're going to be fine overall, but it's still hard to ignore them in that matchup and that value this week. And then Mikey, you already stole the thunder on the Bengals defense. I'm going to be 100% transparent right now. As it stands one night before the first Sunday of the year, and I'll be better in a few weeks, I can't name you one Cincinnati Bengal defensive starter, but I can name you a few Patriot starters, and that's exactly why I'm playing the Bengal defense.
Well, I'll say this, and we'll start with that. Jacoby Brissett, and that's all you have to say, is that's your starter. The guy was the 3rd string guy behind Garoppolo and Brady years ago. He has not gotten better. There's a reason he's not a starter in the league, and yet all of a sudden he's starting for Gerard Mayo, the first-year coach, and the Patriots. So this is going to be an absolute disaster. We went over a lot of that lineup in some of the guys that Mikey had. What I will disagree on a little bit is the James Cook angle, because he had a lot of yards last year rushing. He had a decent clip as far as receiving wise. You mentioned, he get in the end zone or might get some targets or whatever. But the problem is he only had 2 rushing touchdowns last year. I don't see that changing, because anytime they're inside the red zone, it's going to be the Josh Allen show. He had 15 rushing touchdowns last year. James Cook had 2. And I think the only reason he had 2 is because he broke over 20 yards. He was almost like Wendell from Varsity Blues. But So that's my only beef as far as James Cook. I don't see it for the price
this year. No Diggs, no Davis. I think that's going to be. You're right, and I can't argue the facts of the stats. Those are good stats. You're right. But Cook came on the second half of the year, and I think he's the focal point of that offense right now after Josh Allen. He's the best weapon they have with Kincaid, second for sure. And now it'll be interesting to see what Curtis Samuel and Keon Coleman. I mean, Curtis Samuel lives in DFS. He sticks around DFS-wise every year. He makes himself relevant for a few weeks, and that's usually on a shitty team. So I'll be real curious to see what he does once he gets his feet wet in Buffalo.
And I'll get you to take in a second, Mike. But you said Kincaid. I think Kincaid is actually going to be the number one option in Buffalo. Yeah. So it should be. He's going to be. Outside of Kelsey and McBride, you don't really see this very often. But I think Kincaid's going to be the number one option. But we'll see. Time will prove me wrong. But Mikey, your take.
Okay, so I liked it. The one things I don't think I like, the two things I don't think I like is I like James Cook. I like Dalton Kincaid. I don't know that I want a whole lot of investment on both. And I'm a Buffalo fan. You know that, right? Like, I think that, like with running backs, it's kind of tricky for me because running backs around this time of year kind of suck. I mean, and it's weird because I'm flexing a running back. That's only because Jonathan Taylor's playing Houston this week, right? But it's the year of the passing, right? We pass until it's cold. And then we start rushing the football, and that's kind of more of the trend. And I think that I'd rather have a piece of the passing attack on that team. The only other issue I had with that, who was it that you had at the wide receiver? Tell me.
McLaurin, McConkey, and Shaheed.
McConkey. So McConkey is like, people always keep saying, who's he going to throw to? Well, he's got quite a rapport with his wide receiver one, Joshua Palmer, and Josh Palmer is a pretty decent receiver. I think I don't mind McConkey, but I don't really have high expectations for him. I feel like that team is going to be a completely different look with Harbaugh as the coach there now. I think we're going to see a lot of Gus Edwards. I think we're going to see a lot of Justin Herbert throwing dump downs and things like that. And I think McConkey's that guy who will really open it up. But I really don't see that guy getting more than 4 to 5 targets in tomorrow's game, maybe 3 catches, but they're going to be home runs if he does catch one. So I don't mind that either. But again, that's my only 2 apprehensions with that, but I don't mind it too. I mean, it's week 1, anything can happen.
That is very true.
I don't think that's a bad take because, offenses under Jim Harbaugh have been more run heavy. So we'll see, with basically they took Baltimore's running backs and threw them in there. They got Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. So we'll see what the hell happens over there in L.A. But interesting offense compared to what it was last year. So in any case, I'll get into my DFS lineup for tomorrow if Joseph minds putting that up on the screen for me there. So, and I'll gloss over the QB and running back one that you guys already brought up. I mean, Jaden Daniels seems like he's going to be a stud, 7,000 on FanDuel. He's at Tampa Bay. Again, this is going to be a straight up bargain come next week. In our opinion, Bijan Robinson, I think the guy's going to be a stud. And I'm just what I will say about you guys, I'm just surprised that I haven't seen anybody from the Miami-Jacksonville game in your lineups. That's
a fair point. That's a good point because of the scoring that's projected in that game.
I'm floored by this. So I got A-Chain along with Robinson. A-Chain, he's only 7,200 versus Jacksonville. Wide receiver, I'm going Justin Jefferson. I get it. He has essentially Joe thrown to him or Sam Darnold, same thing. But he's basically their only target out there. He's 9,000 at the New York Giants, who are maybe behind the Patriots or in front of the Patriots, one of the more pathetic teams in the NFL. But we'll see what happens. So my 2, I got Khalil Shakir. I just needed to go. I went high on the running backs and Justin Jefferson. I had to get some value. I went Khalil Shakir. He's 5,400 versus Arizona at home. I got Cortland Sutton. He's the number 1 seemingly out there. We'll see what Bo Nix can do with that guy, 5,500 at Seattle. And then my other one from that game, tight end, I got Evan Ingram. I mean, Evan Ingram, he was number 2 in targets last year behind Ridley. Ridley's not there anymore. Evan Ingram seems to be straight up the guy. He's only 6,200 at Miami. You have to think there's going to be offense. I think that's maybe a pick that got glossed over a little bit. And then
people forgot about him in drafts this year, it seemed like. He was so heavily targeted last year. I'm with you on that, Jeff.
And again, he was number 2 in receiving yards last year behind Ridley, who's not there anymore. So it should be interesting to see. And I know they have Christian Kirkwood, they have Gabe Davis. So, but seemingly Evans or Ingram, excuse me, will be the guy. Flex, I went a little bit cheap. I went DeAndre Swift at home versus Tennessee. That was kind of like a throw out there. I guess we'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to go on with the Bears offense. They have really so many weapons all of a sudden. I just happen to think that maybe DeAndre Swift is going to get about 10, 12 carries and probably 5 targets out of the backfield from Caleb Williams, and we'll see what happens with the Bears offense. But I think it's fairly cheap at that for 6,500 versus Tennessee. And then defense-wise, I went Seattle at home versus Denver, rookie QB. Seattle now has the Baltimore defensive coordinator as their head coach. So I think they might have a field day versus Bo Nix, but we'll see what happens. So your thoughts, boys.
So real quick, it's funny. It's a clean sweep on Bijan for us. We talked about Jaden Daniels. I'm looking at A-Chain, and the only thing I hate about A-Chain is Mostert. But when I look at the other guys around, and I guess Kamara home against the Panthers, something about Kamara that just bugs me. But other than that, I can understand why you go A-Chain there. So I'm okay with that. Justin Jefferson, it's going to be interesting to see what Sam Darnold does with him. 9,000. Do you pay up and get CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill and pretty much know you're going to get a monster if you're going to pay the 9 for Jefferson? At the same time, he's Justin Jefferson. So I get that. I think, Shakir, I feel this kind of the same about him as we described McConkey. I love Evan Ingram. I like Swift. People were low on Swift last year, and Philly had a great fantasy year. I like the Seattle defense. I don't know how I feel about Cortland Sutton. If I'm going to look 5,500, I don't know who else you can get here.
And actually, Joe, I'll pause you there. What I might do, since you brought it up, because last year Mikey dubbed him Raheem must start, as in Mostert. So he's $6,000 less than A-Chain. Maybe I sub Mostert for A-Chain and put $6,000 into whoever is 6,100 versus Cortland Sutton. That might be the move.
So I know that, Mostert is heavily his to score a touchdown line is pretty low. Like he's expected to score a TD. So that actually makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. You'd be up to 6,100. You could go Kirk, right. Lockett. You like that game. Yeah, it's an interesting, but week 1, you never know. There's going to be a lot of surprises this week.
Or even I switch on flex from Cortland Sutton to Javonte Williams, who I can kind of move some stuff around. But in any case, we'll figure it out. But
at the same time, you know what, though, Sutton, and I have no idea what Bo Nix is going to be like. The one fantasy bright spot with Denver last year, despite Mike praying for Javonte Williams to have a big game every week last year, Cortland Sutton was actually pretty consistent last year, especially considering how shitty that team was.
And Judy's out. Bo Nix is there. Judy's in Cleveland. I guess Cortland Sutton's the number 1. Who knows? Maybe I'll leave him. I don't want to jinx myself. In any case, Mike, your thoughts?
He's on mute. He's on mute.
You did it to me before. You jinxed yourself. You muted yourself, man. Take it away.
Karma Jeff at its finest right there. So the one thing is with Jacksonville and Miami, my very first week of fantasy football, I'm very superstitious, right? It's a weird thing. I don't like to play the players I've drafted a hefty amount of. And in this case, man, I have so much Evan Ingram because he was coming in so late. I have so much Travis Etienne. I've just got all these guys. So I had to avoid that game because it's a superstition thing. So I really like your angle there. I like your approach. Do we know who Nick Avocado is? I do know who Nick Avocado is. I think I got accused of being him earlier this week because this guy, I guess, evidently looks a lot like me when he lost 200 pounds. I've also been accused of being Aaron Rodgers at certain times too. So I must just have a face that looks, but I know who Nick Avocado is. He's that guy who kind of trolled everybody like he was losing weight when he had already lost all the weight. But Jeff, I think that's a great lineup. Now I do agree with the Mostert thing. I think that Mostert is, and I don't like Cortland Sutton because I just don't. And I mean, I'm a Broncos fan, man. I mean, In fact, I am the #1 Broncos fan. They don't just give these out.
That's true.
That's true.
That's
They
true.
gave this to me right here personally. The Broncos said you are a #1 fan, and I'm not into Cortland Sutton, man.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I'll pause right there, Mike. What happened was they gave it to Jerry Jeudy to give to you on his way to Cleveland through Nebraska. So I did hear that. So go ahead.
It was on the way. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I like the lineup, but I do agree with those two changes. I think I'd move Mostert in over A-Chain this week because Tennessee does still have a pretty formidable run defense. I'm not too excited about it, but I do like the opportunity because Miami's Jacksonville. They got like Josh Allen and things. I mean, they got a pretty stout line there, but I think they're going to run all over them. I think that's going to be a great game. I think there's going to be tons of scoring. Again, man, it's a weird superstition thing. I get out of it after week 1. But week 1, I just can't do it. I don't know why. It's the damnedest thing. It's funny. Because you said that. That's because I can't.
I tell you, Mike, you might have to get over that one, my friend, because Jacksonville, Miami is the second highest predicted scoring game behind the Rams, Detroit. So in any case, that will wrap it up for this episode of DFS Chalk Talk. Like I said, don't forget to catch up tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern. We got the Blitz where we answer everybody's questions live up until the game. So it should be fun. It's a good time. We're all there, and it's much more laid back. Answer or ask avocado questions or whatever you have tomorrow. NBA Jam questions. I forget what we got last week, but in any case, whatever you got, throw it at us. So any parting words there, gentlemen?
No, that's it. Yeah, they said I looked like Nick Avocado with facial hair, so they thought I was trolling on a secondary level. I'm like, dude, I don't know who this guy you're even talking about is, but then I looked it up.
We'll leave it at avocado, and until next time, we've got you covered.
Amen.